You know our next guest, whom you've seen on this show many times before. Please welcome back to the orange carpet, real estate expert from Coldwell Banker Residential Brokerage, Scott Ryan, and his special guest, attorney for California Estate and Elder Law, Scott Stewart.
Welcome to the show, fellas. Scott and Scott.
Yeah, thanks.
The Scotts are here.
Right.
All right. So, Mr. Ryan, first of all, great to see you again.
Thank you.
It's been a while. You wanted to bring Scott on today. Tell us why.
Well, I just turned 40. I have 3 kids. Trying to plan out how my life is going to go. It's going great so far, but I got to thinking it's time to get a trust set up. And Scott's a Scripps Ranch resident and a friend of mine, and I thought he'd be the right person to go to. And after meeting with him and having to answer all these hard questions about, who's going to control my assets and what decisions my kids are going to have to make down in the future, it really got me thinking about, what the future lies in for Scripps Ranch and for the people that are retiring there, not just in Scripps Ranch, but San Diego wide. So I felt compelled to bring Scott on the show to discuss elder law, estate planning, and how you protect your assets and go from there. So,
Scott, you wrote this book.
I did.
Right here. Tell us why you wrote this book.
Well, so I do elder law predominantly, and elder law is a subset of estate planning. And unlike estate planning attorneys, what I'm principally concerned about is what happens if you don't die, but rather what happens if you become really, really sick, and how do you plan for that? The statistics are crazy for what happens with seniors and the likelihood of them becoming ill and then having to pay for care, because most seniors either don't have a means to pay for care or, critically, haven't even had a conversation about what their preferences are. So when someone comes in my office like Scott and they start talking about what do I want, what's my legacy I want to lead, I also want to spend time with them talking about, well, what happens if you become just really sick, and how do you fix that problem?
Yeah, which can be a bigger problem, frankly, than anything else that can happen. And by the way, if you think rents have gone up, the cost for care has gone up so much it's gotten ridiculous, frankly.
Well, it's through the roof.
Especially if you want to stay in your home. That gets really, really expensive.
With the new overtime laws, if you have a 24-hour in-home caregiver, I was talking with a woman who owns a company, and she said that it's $16,000 a month. And we have clients of ours that are living in facilities with needing more care, and they're paying over $30,000 a month for care.
So these are numbers people have never heard before.
Right.
So I'm glad you're here bringing this up today. And by the way, when you talk about long-term care planning, which is what your book is about, that you wrote, can we get this on Amazon?
You can get it on Amazon, but you can actually get it off my webpage. So if you go to my webpage, there's a link, you can download it. It's a free download.
Okay, we'll put that up on the screen as well, because this is one of those things that's a very dynamic process. A lot of people don't realize that. By the way, this may surprise you, but I have long-term care insurance.
Right.
I'm 35 years old. I've had it for 5 years. And the thing with like long-term care insurance and things along those lines, the earlier you start planning, the way better off you are.
Well, and what's interesting about that is that's completely different than what most people think of. So the traditional model in terms of buying long-term care insurance is they would say wait till you're 50. The problem with that is that 40% of long-term care services are used by people under 65. And Parkinson's disease right now, the average age of onset is in their mid-40s. And those folks are going to absolutely require long-term care assistance, and Medicare doesn't cover it. Your health insurance doesn't cover it. Kaiser doesn't cover it. You're looking at either paying out of pocket, selling all your stuff off to pay, relying on your kids, or doing some other type of planning, whether it's through the VA or through some other type of government system. And that's where we come in, because we can navigate those systems and help people get financial assistance to pay for that care. But it's pretty tricky to do.
Yeah, I mean, what are your options, really, as far as paying for it? You got to save up enough money, or you got to have insurance, right?
Right, and good luck with that, right? Because it's not unusual for our clients to be confronting bills at the end of their life of $600,000 to $1 million in additional healthcare costs that were just totally unanticipated.
And you do estate plans for people like you did for Scott.
Right.
But you also do elder law. Can you tell us what is elder law?
So elder law is, there's 2 types of elder law. There's the type where they do litigation, and that's not what I do. What I do is elder law, which is about planning for incapacity. So we try to structure plans towards the 4th quarter of your life, and that's kind of our new catchphrase. And what that means is that if you become ill, if you can no longer communicate your wishes, what do you want to have happen? And how do you want that to be? Do you want to age in place and stay at home? Do you want your kids to pack you up and move you to Michigan because it's cheaper, even though you've never lived there before? What do you want to do?
I think a lot of people don't realize how much of a burden they're putting on their kids or successor trustees if they don't make those decisions ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. And even more than that, even if they have made those decisions, if they haven't communicated them and they're getting to a state where they can't communicate those wishes, then the people who are following then have to recreate the wheel all over again. And as everyone here knows, we make great decisions when we're in the middle of a crisis, right? That's the time where we have the time to think about what the options are, right? Well, of course not. We now have to figure out that in a panic. And that's why what I want people to do is really start planning ahead and thinking about things way in advance. And I think that selling your home to pay for care, that's maybe the best idea ever, but it may be the worst idea ever. And there's a lot of reasons why that might not be such a great idea.
I'll very good case in point. I mean, I had a client about a year ago in Scripps Ranch. She was a neighbor across the street. Her original husband had passed away, and her new spouse, had also had a spouse that passed away. They united, got married. He had an asset in Temecula. She had an asset in Scripps Ranch. They rented the house in Scripps Ranch, moved to Temecula. He goes in for back surgery, is recovering. 2 weeks after surgery, he's discombobulated. Come to find out, they had to send him back into surgery, open his back. He had a huge infection, ended up paralyzed from the chest down, and they ended up having to foreclose. Ultimately, they had a family friend who came in and said, I could help you short sale. They were trying to get money out of this asset in Temecula. They were forced to move back into Scripps Ranch in a 2-story home. He was living in the downstairs bedroom. Ultimately, she was running out of money. The long-term care wasn't paying for it. They had an at-home person come to the house every day. They weren't living there full time. But I witnessed this firsthand myself, and it was a sad situation. I felt bad because she didn't want to move. She loved Scripps Ranch. But she ended up having to sell her house in Scripps Ranch and go buy a single-level house back in Temecula again with a reverse mortgage, which we've talked earlier today is,
that may or may not be the right solution.
Yeah.
And the thing is that choice she made, and we're kind of Monday morning quarterbacking here, that may or may not have been the right choice.
Yeah.
Because if the guy was a veteran during wartime, and their resources are positioned properly, I get in-home care assistance into that home to help them stay home.
Yeah.
And I've actually had household incomes increase by as much as $6,000 a month to keep people home, which is a truly amazing thing when you think about it, because most of these families are trying to live on a fixed income, and if they don't have the financial resources to pay for the care, well, where are they going to get the money to fix the house up, to sell the house? And then if they convert that asset into cash, where are they moving to?
And that's what you mean when you say you practice elder law. That's your realm.
Right. So you got to think all that stuff through. Well, I don't necessarily have solutions, but what I have is experience. And that's really what you're hiring a lawyer for. You're not necessarily hiring the lawyer to grab you by the nose and say, this is what you want to do. You're hiring the lawyer to say, what do you want to do, and how do we get there? And how can we get there in the most efficient way possible, and how can we understand what the pros and cons are of those decisions? So the reason why I do what I do, and I do it well, is because I've literally seen tens of thousands of people doing the exact same thing. And I've made the mistakes, or my clients have made the mistakes in the past, and I say, we're not going to do that again.
So in a situation like that, where someone's got a house, maybe it needs to be fixed up, or maybe it's even an asset of a probate situation, whatever it may be, how do you navigate that situation from your standpoint, selling the house?
It happens every day. I walked into an estate sale yesterday in Scripps Ranch. This agent who I networked with had told me he's got the listing, and they're having a sale. And I walked in, and the house it hadn't been touched since it was built. It was original condition. So, whether you decide to sell the house or not, and a guy like Scott is the perfect person to talk to first before you make that decision. But if it comes time to actually sell that asset, it's good to have the resources to be able to fix it up and maybe fine tune it a little bit and get maximum dollars so that you can extend that wealth preservation to your heirs and the people you're getting the money to when in fact it comes time to sell, versus selling it in the original condition where you've got investors and bottom feeders offering you, all cash, 20% below market.
Yeah.
So, it's proven time and time again, especially with the homes I've been selling in Scripps Ranch, that the houses that are remodeled and fine-tuned are getting top money, versus something like that kind of situation.
Very quickly, too.
Very quickly.
Yeah, it is a hot market there.
They're getting top money.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, thank you guys so much for being
Thanks.
here. Scott Stewart, your book, Long-Term Care Planning, available on your website, which we'll put on the screen right now. This is something that everyone is going to have to deal. Well, we hope we have the opportunity to deal with long-term care planning leads. That's the idea, right? We hope we get to the point where we can deal with this. So if that's the case, if that's what we're hoping for, we should probably plan for it. Really appreciate you coming in today. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Scott Ryan, as always, you're amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. We do it all commercial free.